Hi everyone, Dan here from Canadian Cycling Magazine, here with Ned Overend, legendary mountain biker, and we had a chance to chat a little bit, and we're talking about your race experience in Canada, which probably most people don't realize that you were racing in Canada back in the 80s when mountain bike racing was pretty early.
It's interesting, since you mentioned that, I've been thinking, well, when were the early races in Canada? And I think the first time was probably in Whistler. They had a big stage race there with all the big names in mountain bike racing at the time. I'm going to say it was around, it may have been around 86, 85 or 86. It was a multi-day stage race at Whistler with all the characters. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember Lumpy. It was a fictional, not a fictional, but a historic character of the early days of mountain bike racing over on the West Coast side. And the Cove Bike Shop, stuff like that were sponsoring events back then. But we did a stage race in Whistler that had it had a hill climb, it had a downhill, it had a dual slalom, I remember, which was pretty interesting in those days for the cross country guys to be doing dual slaloms.
Yeah.
And then of course it had some big cross country events, several cross country races. Along with these other races, so it was pretty cool, and it was I think it was done on points, the dual slalom. I remember I was battling with John Tomac. I think the two of us were battling for the lead in that race, but
and probably doing that on hardtail, like not
hardtail,
exactly what you're racing on now.
May have even been rigid front end.
Yeah,
I think also at that time. Actually, it was.
Right. Yeah. I guess it would have been. So. Yeah, when you think of Whistler now, you definitely don't think, not only not a rigid bike, but definitely you wouldn't even want to be there on a hardtail bike, I think, for a lot of that stuff.
Fully rigid. No, and it was, I remember it was tough back then.
Yeah.
Racing. They had some, even then, they had technical trails on the mountain.
You also, you raced at Bromont and Mont Saint Anne and some of these World Cup courses that are still part of the circuit, and, we just saw the circuit up at Mont Saint Anne. What is it about these events that sort of makes them popular with riders and makes riders want to go back?
I think the key to the World Cups that have been going on forever at Mont Saint Anne is the promoters. Patrice and Chantal have done a great job. They've got the formula for promoting a great event and giving riders something that makes them want to come back. Developing great courses, and they've always had, at those races, they've had great parties. They have custom parties. They have, great celebrations of cycling, along with good courses, and they give not just the pros, a great experience, but also all the other age group classes, stuff like that. And then people want to come back and they want to support the event year after year, and that's really an impressive track record they've got over there. And then on the West Coast you have Crankworks, and that's incredibly popular. I mean, for what's a 9-day event now. So
really growing, and they're getting ready to get that going next week, I think.
Yep, that's coming up. This weekend. I think it starts. So again, the quality of promotion, but also kind of the terrain they have.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, you've obviously raced all around the world and have done so many of these different courses. So, is there one thing about, say that the Quebec terrain, Bromont or Mont Saint Anne, that makes it stand out from other courses around the world? Or?
Well, not so much from around the world, but from a lot of the courses that we race on in the U.S. I live in Colorado, so I race in Colorado a lot. I race in California a lot, and I can tell you that racing in Mont Saint Anne and Bromont, the Quebec style of dirt, is hard. Very technical, because it's wet and it's slippery and it's rough. And it's great for, I think, full suspension bikes. I mean, it's demanding on suspension systems, on tires, and on the riders. So I think that kind of challenge is what not only makes for some great Canadian racers, right? Because they grow up racing in those conditions. But that's what makes it difficult, but also challenging for U.S. racers too. I think the guys who grow up on the East Coast have better skills in that kind of terrain, and the guys in Colorado or in California are more challenged by it.
Right. Excellent. Well, listen, thanks a lot for the time, and
sure.
We look look forward to hopefully seeing you up in Canada again sometime soon for some
I'll
more
be up there
events.
for sure.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you very much.